U.S. air campaign against the Taliban is only in its fourth week, and some critics are saying it's not going well and suggesting a stalemate may be at hand. Once again, the question has been raised of how much can be accomplished from the air against a determined enemy fighting on home soil. For perspective on that issue and on the war in general, we turn to Navy Commander Ward Carroll, a professor at the U.S. Naval Academy, who joins me here. Commander, welcome. Nice to have you.
Brit, great to be here.
What's your sense about this air campaign? Air Force experts have been telling us, really almost from the beginning of it, that while it was being executed properly in terms of pilots doing their job and targets appear to be getting hit, that it was relatively mild and that it wasn't as intense or as intensive as it could be. What's your sense of that?
Well, I think it's early, for one thing, in the campaign, and I think we need to remember that. I think it's been appropriate to the intel we had, and it's been appropriate to the situation we're in. Obviously, today with the B-52 carpet bombing, we've ramped it up to some degree, but I think we've done what we intended to do so far, and I think it's gone pretty well.
Now, talk to me about this question of these front lines that the Taliban have there around Bagram, north of Kabul, around Mazar-e-Sharif, which are the two areas where they're sort of face-to-face with Northern Alliance forces, whom we, at least, if we don't support them directly, we're certainly supporting them indirectly. We'd like them to be able to move. How much can bombing do to pave the way for them?
Well, it can do a lot, and we need to allow the hit assessment from today's raids seed and take hold and see what we've done. Certainly, the magnitude of what you showed before the break that's a robust presentation that they haven't seen, and I think that can do a lot. Can it do everything? I don't know, and I think the Department of Defense has been pretty candid about what they hope to achieve with air power. And I don't hear anybody that matters saying that this is going to be the end-all and be-all of this war.
Well, I know, but there's no, as far as you can tell, though, no one is contemplating a large injection of American ground forces in there. So if the if the Northern Alliance isn't going to take these positions and conquer territory, who is?
Well, that's a great question. I think you've answered it with the question. Yeah, somebody's got to. When are we going to do it? Ill-defined. Winter. There are a lot of variables here. The thing about that is a step, once you take it, that you can't take back. And I think we're being very protracted and not cautious, but being very sort of deliberate about how we go about doing that.
Talk to me about the psychological effect of this bombing. Two types, high-tech, low-tech. First, high-tech. Okay,
if we could go to the tape real quick that we have queued up there. You know, we've heard a lot, Britt, about the how invulnerable and this classic Afghan countryside and the threat, and certainly the countryside is daunting, and the Afghan warriors or the Taliban, for in this case, have done a lot to build this mystique of how dedicated they are and how they're willing to die, but. From that FLIR right there, you can see they've never seen this sort of this strike warfare capability.
What did that show us?
Well, that's a Tomcats FLIR that is
What's the FLIR?
The forward-looking infrared, right. The precision bombing pod, and right there,
what did it hit?
It looks like it's aimed at a cave opening, and you can see as the thing hits, you have a secondary explosion. So it was most likely holding some munitions, and there may have been some Taliban forces in that cave, but. Certainly, if they think that they've seen this from the Soviets in the form of Heinz or whatever else, they're mistaken. And this cannot be lost on them, what we're doing here. And I think...
You mean, your point being that the Soviets had nothing like this kind of precision-guided...
No, they didn't have aircraft carriers that could project this power with impunity, with no concern for host nation status, and they didn't have precision munitions capability that can target cave openings. Right. Now, again, can this win the whole war? Unknown, but it certainly is doing something. You know, it's not having no effect.
Now, let's go to you mentioned that this was an awesome display, the B-52 carpet bombing, as it's called, that was done. What is that like? I mean, I take it there's two effects of that. It's destructive, and that's part of it. Psychological effect of that.
Well, I think it's incredible. I mean, this is just hell on earth. I mean, how can troops in the middle of that be other than persuaded that we're resolute and we're going to take it to them. You know, I think that's a very profound step that we've taken, and this can't be lost on our enemy.
And what would be the kind of effect? Would you contemplate that they would withdraw from those positions because they're vulnerable? I mean, how vulnerable is a dug-in enemy along lines in mountain country like that to the kind of bombing that we described, that we've seen?
Well, again, I'm not privy to the intel of what we hit exactly.
Well, just generally speaking.
Well, if they're out in the open, they're very vulnerable. If they're dug in, then the vulnerability is subject to assessment and then retargeting. In any case, if nothing else, and I'm not saying that was all that was done, but if nothing else, the morale factor is very profound here.
And that's because the noise, the violence of it, the sound of it, you can't sleep. What's that
Everything,
like?
all those things, and the destruction of it. Again, the Soviet Union didn't have the ability to bring this sort of destruction to bear.
Even the B-52 kind of?
Sure, yeah. They didn't have the stick-length bombing capability that we have. You know, so this that you're seeing here, if I'm on the open plain there and I look up and see this happening, you know, I'm going to think twice about my point of view, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's awfully hard to tell at this distance exactly how big that explosion was. I mean, it looks, you know, I suppose when this is from many miles away,
Right.
It looks relatively small. I guess if you're out there, it's
But that's just one of a stick of many bombs, you know, that we saw just there. So, you know, this has got to affect them psychologically.
Now, can you get any feel for what the plan is? I mean, the Pentagon is telling us that this war is on plan, that we're on course, that we're doing what we set out to do here. There are those who say that maybe it's not going so well. Last question.
Well, my feel for what the plan is I know Admiral Stufflebeam pretty well, and he's a fleet operator, he's a fighter pilot. The plan is underway, and I think the American people should trust those that are executing the plan, you know.
All right. Commander Ward Carroll, who I should also say is the author of a novel about an F-14 combat fighter. It's called Punk's War. Punk is the protagonist, the pilot, and you can find that in your bookstore, Punk's War by Ward Carroll. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Nice to have you. Have to take a break for other headlines. When we